Hi, I'm Gareth Rose from ipitch.com.au. In this interview I sat down with Chris Shipley. Chris has been advising and analysing startups and early stage tech businesses for nearly 25 years. She lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and is CEO of Guidewire Group, which developed the G-Score, and it helps and accelerates tech startups. Here's the interview. There's a lot of talk about a tech bubble at present. What's really going on in Silicon Valley?
Well, I think you need to understand that Silicon Valley is driven by, as much as anything, an investor culture. Right? And when investors get excited about something and they build the hype and the excitement around a particular set of investments, it's about promoting the investment. And so I think we're hearing and seeing a lot of froth, maybe a bubble around some of these early stage investments that are really, in some cases based on real value, but also this perceived value of where markets are going. The bubble, I think, that we're experiencing now is really being driven by an investor mindset, but also I think by the fact that there's some really interesting new opportunities occurring, and right now it's a grand experiment. So why wouldn't you as an investor want to place bets in a lot of different places?
There's some talk that the businesses now have more clear business models than they did back in the dot-com boom. What's your take on that? Are they sort of more legitimate businesses now that investors are getting involved in, or is it the same sort of scenario as before?
You know, it's the same but different. So in the dot-com boom, I would talk to literally hundreds, thousands of startups, and there would always be this slide in the deck that said, and we'll make money by advertising, a affiliate fee, and it was sort of the three things that were part of the business model. I think today there's some of that going on, where if we can amass a large audience, we can create an advertising-based business. But I think what's different in this period of time, whether it's a bubble or not, is that it's a different kind of money being invested. There's a different kind of risk that's happening. And we're seeing a number of interesting ideas that aren't quite yet businesses. They're products or they're concepts that are getting some initial funding for experimentation, with, I think, the intent that those projects would be acquired by some of the big, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters. More so, I think, even than we're seeing sort of solid business models. We're seeing, I guess the short version is, we're seeing very similar business models to the dot-com era, but really the same sense of let's build a feature, let's build a concept, a project, and hope that our outsourced R&D is valuable to the Twitter, the Googles, these sorts of companies.
Okay, that actually sort of leads into what was going to be my next question. Is this is taken from your website. It says, I look at technology not with an engineer's zeal for elegant code, but with a human eye for usefulness, practical advancement, and social change. So based on what you're saying there, when you look at a startup, I gather you don't just look at the technology, you more take into account the customer, the market, the business model, and all these things that can grow a real business out of. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. I think if you build something because of its elegant code or its new algorithm or something of this sort, it could be a beautiful invention, but until a customer buys it, embraces it, brings it home in some fashion, it's not innovation. Right? Innovation comes when it's adopted. And so what I'm looking at when I look at a product or a technology or a new business is how will an individual, a consumer, a buyer, however that's defined, corporate or individual, bring this into his own environment, embrace it, and make that thing have value. If it's beautiful code, it's beautiful code, and it might be an invention, but until someone buys it, it's not innovation.
Okay. Can you explain the G-score and how it's calculated?
Yeah, so we developed the G-score as a way of measuring a startup on that path from initial idea to a sustainable company. So it's a 7-factor scale looking at the overall opportunity, the market opportunity, some market size, the competitive risk, the progress in creating a sustainable business, progress in taking the product to market, the team, and the business model. In each of those 7 factors, we look at a 4-point scale that ranges from very early, just beginning, to full and mature. And we strive to make the G-score transparent and objective because it is a measure, much like a mile marker is a measure. The G-score begins to have greater relevance when it's combined with other data to give context to how fast are you moving, how are you moving relative to others in your market segment, how are you moving to others with similar time in market or similar funding. In and of itself, it's a measure of progress. In context with other data, it may be a measure of velocity or value.
So you may have sort of semi-answered this, but how would a startup who gets their G-score make use of it? Is it literally they can benchmark themselves against, see themselves against the benchmark and analyse it like that and decide, hey, I need to progress this part of my business? Or how would a company actually make use of it?
Yeah, the G-score can be very prescriptive. So I can take a score and look at my 7 factors and determine that I scored only a 1 in the team segment. If I bring in the right technical co-founder or the business co-founder, if I build my team, I'm building value into the business. And that will have more impact, maybe the best use of my resources, than if I go try to create more market momentum by buying advertising or some marketing effort. So we think that, and experience has taught us that looking at your G-score across those 7 factors helps an entrepreneur focus resources, focus attention on the places where they can really make a difference in the business, and that then has effect in other factors of the score. So in that way it's prescriptive, and then we think that ultimately what we're building now is an online software as a service platform that will allow an entrepreneur to self-assess and reassess, but also then connect them to and use their score as a pivot point on competitive benchmarking. So our goal with our G-score platform, which will come into the market in the middle of the summer, is really about how do we help an entrepreneur have a competitive dashboard to really understand where that business is relative to others in their market.
Okay. I know you work with hundreds of startups and early stage tech companies per year, helping them bring new products to the market and position their technology in the marketplace. Do you use something similar to Steve Blank's custom development or Eric Ries's lean startup models, or have you sort of developed your own methodology perhaps around the G-score in order to assist these early stage companies find products and get product market fit as such?
Yeah, well, our goal ultimately is to take our experience with entrepreneurs and deliver it to the marketplace at scale. So much of what happens today is very high-touch mentorship between a startup entrepreneur and perhaps a business advisor. And that's hugely valuable, but it's also limited in the scope of its impact. So what we're doing at Guidewire is taking the G-score as the center point to look for ways to scale support of entrepreneurs, to scale the resources, to scale mentorship. And that's really the sole focus of our business today, is how do we help more entrepreneurs build better businesses all around the world. There are a lot of approaches to do that. We think the G-score is a great prescriptive model, again, as a starting point. But we're also really looking at all of these models to really identify those that are going to work best. Because at the end of the day, our belief is if entrepreneurs win, everybody gets to win. So let's get behind entrepreneurs, help them build their business, and that just brings success for all of us.
Okay, great. In terms of, I guess, just some small nuggets of practical advice. I imagine I'm an early stage founder, potentially a new entrepreneur, and I'm listening to someone like yourself with obviously a massive amount of experience, what would be one or two sort of key tips you would say for a early stage founder trying to successfully start up? What sort of advice would you provide?
Boy, there's so much advice, and so part of the challenge for any entrepreneur is how do you filter through all of that, right? Everyone has a perspective. I think key is to really understand your customer and really get focused on how do you drive value to that customer. There's no better venture capital than the capital that comes from a customer paying you for something. So get close to your customer, really understand what they want, and work to deliver that. Get focused, because it is so easy as an early stage company, particularly when you're trying to derive revenue from your various product offerings, to get distracted by all the shiny objects of things that might be opportunity for you. So focus in and really be disciplined about that. And then thirdly, I think it's just move fast, because this is a very exciting, frothy, interesting time in the world markets for entrepreneurship. There's so much investment being made and support being offered to entrepreneurs that if only on a noise basis, there's so much more competition. So as an entrepreneur, you need to move really quickly, identify things that are working, put your resources behind those, stop doing things that aren't working, stay focused, and really build the business.
Okay, great. So some really strong points in there. Where do founders tend to go wrong? What are some common mistakes you see?
I think you get distracted. You find some other opportunity, or what is masked as an opportunity, so you go chasing off to build a business in one way or another. So defocusing, I guess, is the short version of what I think entrepreneurs tend to fall into that trap. I think being so absolute about your perspective, right, and knowing that you've got the best technology or the best product or the best algorithm, and not letting go of that, getting down into the weeds of your business, and failing to come back up and look around you and really understand what it is that the customer is embracing. Losing sight of that individual who is going to give you currency in order for you to deliver your product to market. I think those things, as much as anything, we can chase venture money, we can chase these ideas, we can chase opportunities, we can be absolute about our technology, but if we're not really focused on what our customers want, what our customers will pay for, then we're missing the mark in our businesses. Okay,
great. What are the emerging technologies and market trends or big problems that you see that need to be solved, that interest you? So what might be some of the areas that you expect to see the next group of big startups emerging?
Wow, there's so many opportunities right now in the market, because at one point we're seeing a lot of activity around social and social commerce, social marketing, social relationships, and I think there's a lot going on there, but it's also missing some of the opportunities that are happening, for example, in the enterprise, in the business space. Small to medium-sized enterprises, even larger enterprises, are really looking at how do they reposition and become more competitive in a difficult marketplace. And technology is a lever for them to do that. With the mass market focusing on a consumer opportunity, we might miss that there's actually an eager buyer here in pain, looking for new solutions to leverage technology to make their businesses more efficient. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the enterprise space, in the small business space, and certainly as those customers move to cloud-based computing, for example, and providing all the full stack of infrastructure for the cloud. So, I guess the really short answer is there's opportunity all over the place, and when you can focus on what your customers really want to buy from you, I think you can find a really interesting business there.
And take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're probably seeing now, I guess on this trip, and I'm not sure how often you get here or if you've been around here before, but Australia's got a quickly emerging startup space and ecosystem. Obviously, without the history and the sheer size of the US, will never be a Silicon Valley. But we sort of do have the opportunity to consciously create our own ecosystem with our own particular strengths. I guess my question is, in your view, what are the key things that need to come together in order to create a thriving startup hub or a thriving startup ecosystem?
Yeah, I'm often asked about what creates this vibrant ecosystem, and often in the context of how can we be the Silicon Valley of fill in the blank. The reality is that an ecosystem is not just a checklist of we have investors, we have technology entrepreneurs, we have the service providers to support them, we have a university system. An ecosystem is about a context and a culture. So I think you have to look at how do we create an environment, a context that's ripe for entrepreneurship, it's ripe for business building, but in a context of our own values, where some communities they embrace risk, others don't. How do you measure those trade-offs and yet create the right environment? So there isn't one model that fits for every place, because every place is unique, and the things that are advantages here in Sydney or in Australia overall are a different set of advantages, a different set of empowering options that don't exist in Silicon Valley or someplace else. So I might look at Australia, at Sydney, as here's a market where I get to emulate, create a test bed for my product, my technology that is a microcosm of what I might experience in the US. I get to make all my mistakes here, where an American consumer has no clue what I'm doing. And when I've perfected it, now I take it to the US market. And that may be a role, not the only role, and maybe not even the best role, but a role for the entrepreneur in Australia to really use the marketplace here as a way to validate concepts that then can expand into global markets. And the point really is really focus on what your strengths are and then embrace those. And I think too often when I talk to entrepreneurs or executives who are in other places outside the Valley, they're focused on why they're not Silicon Valley, rather than focusing on what value, what opportunities they have that Silicon Valley could never have. And so embrace what's special here. Recognize where you might need to bridge into these new markets, but really take advantage of the unique environment that you have.
Good advice. Look, I guess to finish up on, where can we look out for you? What are the sort of big projects that you're working on this year or over the next few years?
I and Guidewire Group, we're all about how do we deliver services at scale to entrepreneurs around the world. So we are in Silicon Valley. We use Silicon Valley as a test bed, as an observation deck. But what we ultimately want to do is find out how we take some of that DNA about company building and really transplant it into markets around the world, because our view is that entrepreneurship is the path to economic development, job creation, all good things. And if we can help to take some of the knowledge that we have in Silicon Valley and transplant that into other markets, create the opportunity for entrepreneurship around the world, and that's goodness. And to me, that means we have to figure out how to do that at scale. So we're all about how do we deliver tools, service, data to entrepreneurs at scale wherever they are in the world to help them build their businesses.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for being here.
No, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any feedback or recommendations of people who I should be interviewing, please let me know. I do want to hear about it. Get in contact with me via the iPitch website. That's the best way. And otherwise, look out for more interviews at ipitch.com.au. Thank you.